booties for black girl nerds.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So, Himesh, I'm going to start with you. I noticed that a number of the characters in this story dump their problems on Daniel. It's almost like he's a therapist to his coworkers at times. Would you say that that's a fair assessment of his character, of how he handles and navigates these situations throughout the series?
Yeah, I think, well, he's sort of the center point of everything has to go through him to get sort of for anything to function. You know, I think so much of being on any set or any workplace, really, the sort of efficacy of it is about communication, and he's the main channel of communication. So it's just inevitable that as a first AD, you know, people are going to come to you for with their questions, and you've got to get the answers from whoever you need to go to, you know. So yeah, I think it's just a facet of his job. He kind of just has to listen to a lot of different people's needs and then filter out the ones that are important and the ones that aren't to get to where they need to get to.
Indeed. I love the fact that this series is focused through the lens of the first AD. We really don't ever get to hear their perspective in these types of stories. They truly are the unsung heroes of film production.
It's really exciting to be a part of a show that is talking about those people that we never see in the film industry. All those people that actually build the ship and are like making it all come together.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And Aya, for you, there's a great line that Anita says in this series. She asks, "Can we internalize our panic?" And I really love that line because it pretty much sums up, in my opinion, who and what Anita represents in this series. Would you agree with that? How would you assess what that line represents in relation to your character?
Totally. It's also a very British line. Can we internalize our panic? I feel like that's like the lesson I needed to learn working on a British show, because they are so good at like stiff upper lip and not show you
Keep calm,
all
carry
the
on.
like all the what is it, the duck feet below the surface, right? And I'm like, I feel something, here it is. And so that was actually one of the fun challenges of Anita, was actually like having to both internalize her panic and keep everyone else on track, and keeping that stiff upper lip.
Right. Keeping the ship together and keeping it afloat, if you will. Billy, for you, I don't want you to have to name names here, because I don't want you to get in trouble. But did Adam remind you of any real life actors that you've met? Or was this a completely new take when you approached this character?
No, I pull from my experiences in life and like fellow actors. It doesn't have to be superhero for friends that are playing superheroes or anything like that. I think a lot of actors, and like you could correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there's a lot of insecurity in our industry, and like it is that we're acting secure and safe and feeling strong. And the truth is, you go into every project being like, man, I hope I'm doing this right. Am I enough? Am I enough for this? And I think every actor confronts that question with themselves. I also want to point out, no one today has been like, Billy, your line in the show really meant something. I have no lines anyone quotes.
And this is Billy showing you what that looks like.
Insecure.
I just find
prolific, Adam.
I find that dichotomy very interesting, because, you know, Adam is like playing this big, larger than life superhero, and he has this huge fan base, but yet he's so insecure, and he's looking on Reddit for acting advice. It's so interesting to me, that dynamic of his character.
I think that's all true. I think people do that shit.
Yeah. Himesh, back to you. Do you think for Dan, out of everyone working on this production, that he's the only one that doesn't see this as a job, that he sees it as something more?
Yeah, I think I think especially working on this project and getting to be part of, Maximum Studios, I think that's something that he really cherishes because, as we find out in the first scene, these comics mean something to him. These stories mean something to him. You see it in episode 3 when there's a whole conversation about, we need to solve the woman problem, as they put it, and he has his opinions about what's, comic book accurate or. So I think this specific world that he's in, he likes being a part of it, and I think he wants to have creative input because he thinks he knows where they're going wrong and what they need to do to get to a better place. So it's definitely more than just any first AD job for him.
He's definitely a man after my own geek heart. I love the fact that he is like a comic book nerd and he knows.
Mm.
How, as someone like you're into comics and stuff like that, and that
Gotcha.
whole world, like, how do you receive the show actually? Like, do you think it's admiration for the superhero world? Is it satire? Like, how are you receiving it?
First of all, I'm receiving it as one of the most hilarious shows I've seen in quite a while. And I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you guys. It had me in stitches from the first episode to episode 8. But more in-depth answer, I'm receiving it as just sort of a take on the real life happenings of what goes on in a film production. And I worked in film. I was actually a second AD on a
Okay.
film production.
You know it.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah, yeah. So I know the struggle, and like I said at the beginning, the role of a first AD is it's one of those unsung heroes because you're the first one on the set, you're the last one to leave, and it's a tough job. So I like the fact that this show is showing sort of the inner workings of that role and that journey, and we get to see that through this lens. And I'm glad that this is going to be exposed to the world, and a lot of people are going to be able to experience that.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. So over to you. Would you say that Anita's motives are more self-serving or and like self-serving and power-driven as she kind of navigates her role as a producer?
I think she definitely starts off that way. I think she's coming to this pretty cynical and for cynical reasons. But then, like all cynicism is rooted in romanticism. There's a certain, she gets swept up as well because of these people. And, she has a history with Daniel. And I mean, I haven't seen all the episodes, so I don't know how this plays out. But I do think that there is like a real deep connection, friendship between them, despite all the chaos. And that she ultimately, she gets wrapped up and invested in trying to make it good too, because she starts to see the potential. And so I think she starts the season in a different place than she ends the season.
Well, I saw the episodes. I love the way it ends. I look forward to, fingers crossed, we see another season because I loved seeing the way these characters interact. I want to see the rest of their journey. And thank you so, so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Hello.
Hello. So, Lolly, I'll start with you. I love your character, Dag. I love the fact that, she's new on the job, but yet she seems to be running the show sometimes with the way she speaks with everybody that's around her. Why do you think she likes to offer so much insight to everyone?
Yeah, I think she has no filter, and somehow that's worked for her for all of her 36 years, I think. And I think she just knows that, like, playing the game the normal way and just rising up the ranks very slowly often doesn't really pay off, and you can kind of get stuck in kind of a lower down the food chain position. And I think she's just kind of being a renegade and trying to go straight to the top by any means necessary. I think she sees people around her who are in higher positions and maybe not that competent, and she's like, I could do that. So she just kind of goes for it.
She's a woman on a mission. I love it. Darren, for you, Pat shows the capitalistic and greedy side of what producers represent. That being said, are there any redeeming qualities to his character that we'll get to uncover in this series?
Great question. Character? No. Probably. Probably. Redeeming? No. If you like, I mean, I don't really. I mean, there are a few small, very small moments of vulnerability that you'll see, but all in all, no. I think he's probably good at his job, but that's not really about his character. It's more about performance based. But he's good at his job probably, and he's what he's what the studio needs. But yeah, that's it. And I'm fine with that.
The studio wants a bottom line man and
Bottom line guy and a guy who can get it done, you know.
Get it done. Yep. And
Yeah.
Pat is there for the job.
Yeah.
Isaac, over to you. Bryson, the scenes with him are so funny. I laughed out loud at every scene that you were in. Were there moments where you broke character because the lines were just too funny?
Yeah, there were definitely, I mean, there were so many of these moments throughout the entire season. Lolly and I were talking earlier about an episode where it's kind of a group scene, and I don't know why, just the energy on set was so buoyant that day, and we just, like, the two of us couldn't really keep it together. And there's this one little shot that I think is stuck in there. No one else will notice this, but I think we had done something kind of silly right before they called action, and you can just see, like, Lolly's shoulders just start to bounce a little bit. Like, stayed in. But yeah, I mean, the whole season was full of moments like that. It was just so hard. Or those moments where they would call cut and everybody would immediately start laughing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to keep in character when everybody's just so good.
Lolly, what is a personality trait that Dag has that you admire, and what is a trait that she has that you think needs a little bit more improvement?
I admire that she's not scared of people who are more powerful than her. She's completely unaware of like Pat's disdain towards her, but it's kind of her superpower because she kind of treats him the same as everyone else. Obviously, like respects him and wants to like be his colleague, but she, I think she has no filter, and she kind of just backs herself and has the confidence to be like, I believe in myself and I think I can make it to the top. What does she need to improve? I think sort of saying the most obvious thing in the moment when everyone else is already thinking it and doesn't need to hear her say it. There's a scene where when Adam's using the invisible jackhammer and then they're meant to like go up really fast and she's like, I think that should be faster. It's like, yeah, baby, get it. But yeah, she has no filter, and I admire that.
That was a hilarious scene. And then her just trying to say how that scene should go when really she should know her place. Like, it's her first day and she's like orchestrating how the scene should go. So yeah, absolutely hilarious. Darren, over to you. Pat is the guy that the crew has to answer to. But he also has to answer to his boss, Shane. Is Pat more of a guy that prefers direction, or rather than taking direction?
No, I think he still likes giving direction. I mean, that is a whole other avenue of exploration at some point I'd love to do, which is who's kicking him, you know, yeah, I mean, because he has a lot of fear himself, lots on his shoulders. So it comes out in some unkind ways. But yeah, I think, but I'm more comfortable giving orders. Yeah, definitely.
And for you, Isaac, there's so many great moments and scenes in this series. Is there a scene or a moment that still resonates with you long after completing this show?
Yeah, there's a really sweet scene between Bryson and Dag where you kind of understand that the both of them are young people who have like they've sacrificed a lot because they love what they're doing and they see a brighter future for themselves, but they're also asking themselves like, is this worth the best years of our lives? And I think that's something that a lot of people in really difficult industries find themselves asking. And so I still think about that a lot.
When is that? What's in it?
It's that episode.
It's in the night
episode
shoot.
6.
Oh.
Yeah, the
Okay.
fireball.
Bryson's birthday.
Yeah.
It's your birthday.
Oh yeah, you didn't know.
No, that doesn't
Yeah, no one knew.
birthday it is.
Yeah, Dad cared.
Dad cared.
Yeah. And she gave him the ultimate gift, which is to meet Christopher Nolan.
And Tom Cruise. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was great. That was a great scene too. Yeah, there's so many great scenes, and I loved every episode. I actually binge watched all of them. I was just like,
You watched them all?
I watched them all. I gobbled
Nice.
them up. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I was laugh out loud funny, and yeah, absolutely great series. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I really appreciate the conversation. I can't wait for everybody to see this show and talk about it on social media.
Thank you.
you
It's
so
nice
much.
to meet you.
Thank you. Hello, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, I'm going to start with you. Steph seems to agree with everything that Daniel says or does.
Yeah, she does until she's sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
No, I was saying she does until she kind of gets annoyed with him. And then she just sort of just flips. She's like, okay, she's had enough of his antics.
Why is that? And when is that again?
I think that's
Yeah,
kind of
why is that? That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
why does she get frustrated?
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
she's just worn down by it. Because
Yeah.
he's treating her in a way like and he's
No,
not
but I
kind
guess
of respecting her.
the frustration that you go through, this is not my fault. There's another
Okay, is
reason,
Eric
and you
talking
know,
Or Daniel talking.
well, you figure it out.
But yeah, but she really wants to support him. I think she really, especially at the beginning, she really believes in him as a director and believes that he's a visionary and wants to really support him in that vision. And then he kind of like his stress of the situation kind of leads him to just sort of, I don't know, just start snapping. I guess she's an easy target too, Steph. She's kind of like kind of invisible in some respects. And Eric seems to be oblivious at the impact that his behavior and his kind of sniping is having. So so even her kind of sulks ineffectual. I don't even know if he particularly even notices, which is the really sad thing. I don't think he even notices when she kind of like storms off. He's like, whatever. He doesn't even care. He's not even bothered.
That's
True. It's true.
horrible. No, it's not true.
It's such an interesting dynamic between the characters of Steph and Eric. I really love seeing how you guys play these characters on screen. And Daniel, for you, working in a real life franchise, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, did you see a lot of parallels between what happens in the franchise and your personal experience on the set of those films?
Yeah, well, it definitely helped to be. This was the most massive project that I ever did, and really, like, literally universe that I entered. But funnily, when it came to this show, I hardly thought about my experiences at Marvel. It was another film that I did that I don't want to mention. That was a total disaster. It was a complete shit show from the second on that I arrived, and it had nothing to do with the script that I had read and that I was prepared to do. So that was a very painful process. I still remember that miserable bathroom that I went to each night, looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, like, how am I going to survive these next couple of weeks? But then you have to do it. You have to go through it. So so I thought about this film a lot, and then I directed one film, which was a very small and contained film. I'm very proud of it. Only a few people have seen it, but this is like the unlikening that Eric directed. But so it was helpful that I once had this experience to be a director and the captain of the ship, having to answer all these questions that occur, and so that also helped me in getting into the mindset of Eric Bouchard.
Withdraw from that experience, indeed. Jessica, back to you. Is Steph more of a clingy type when it comes to friendships and relationships, or how would you describe how she connects with people?
I don't think she's clingy. She's quite singular. I think she's quite self-sufficient in a way. I think she kind of like, I think she sort of, when she likes someone, but I think her real love and focus is her work. And I think that's probably always been the case for Steph. Like, Steph loves what she does. She loves it, and she loves being good at it. And her whole identity is intertwined with the skill that she has of being a really, really good script supervisor. So in that sense, I guess I wouldn't say she's kind of married to her work, but she is like that is her main relationship. So she's clingy to her work, I would say. And because she's clingy to her work, then kind of work relationships are sort of, part and parcel of that. So she wants it to be the best script supervisor she can be, which sometimes in this case kind of means being really good and supportive to Eric. But I do think she likes Eric. I mean, I think she thinks he is kind of brilliant, but their relationship is kind of, about what they're doing, what they're making together. And in a way, I think that's the kind of thrill that is for her, that is the thrill, is that they're together making this incredible thing. And that to her is the kind of intimacy. There's no better intimacy in a way in her mind, I don't think. And that's what she has when she's working, and she's working closely. She works closely with all kinds of different directors, and she loves that. She loves that feeling. So I think that when she has this fling and fixation on Rufus, who is the kind of CGI supporting artist playing an enormous angry mollusk, she I wouldn't say she was clingy, probably maybe the opposite. I mean, I feel like she's kind of objectifying him a bit. I feel like I'm not sure about Steph's behavior. It's a little bit questionable.
Well, unhinged a little bit sometimes.
A little bit questionable. And I kind of worry about her because I think she kind of having some, she's a little bit of a loose wire there. What's going on there?
Indeed.
She is so good at what she does, and she loves it. That is the central tenet of her. And I don't think you could call her a workaholic per se, but you could argue that a lot of people who work in this industry who are so brilliantly skilled in a very specific area, in a very specific job, kind of become completely subsumed in that job and in that world. And I would say there are aspects of the show that kind of really address that, particularly with Himesh's character and what he sacrifices to be there. And in a sense, even though Steph doesn't have children, why doesn't she have children? Probably because she is just absolutely, she loves her, she's married to her job. She doesn't want to do any, it's her identity.
Indeed. I mean, I think that's a perfect encapsulation of not only your character. You mentioned that, you think she's clingy to her work. I think that's also of many of the other characters on the show, that they all are very passionate and very drawn to their jobs respectively. And I just absolutely loved this series. I binged all the episodes. I laughed out loud at all of the scenes. I love the behind the scenes moments at the end credits. Absolutely great series. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I appreciate the conversation. And I can't wait for everybody to see this. This is such a great show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Armando, I will start with you. I absolutely love the dialogue on this show. The one line that Adam says about non-consensual improv, that line was hilarious.
I'm going to give John and his team all the credit for these lines. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so great. So where did you come up with some of these zany zingers and lines for the show?
You'll be better for us to answer it, but I think it's you get the right chemistry in the room. You get a writing team who spark off each other and aren't, because you hear of some writing teams, it's all very competitive. And with the shows we're making, it's an ensemble thing. You've got to be a team player. So I imagine it's if you get the right kind of combination of voices, in a room, then things come up that surprise you, that you wouldn't have come up with yourself. But it needs that kind of special chemistry of different voices.
Yeah, and I guess also then when you have a great cast and you start to hear them, I think that's when you, as a writer, know you're working with good people. You can start to hear what their points of view or what they're going to say. And I guess with that in particular, that's Adam and Billy, who's so brilliant. I guess we'd got an idea based on a real anecdote we'd heard about someone doing some improv during a movie, and they've started riffing on this person, and it got quite personal, and it wasn't very nice, and it seemed to cross a line, and that seemed like a funny idea. And so we sort of built it from a real thing we'd heard about. And our cast is so good and they're so clear in what they do that what's really good is as the show develops, it sort of starts to sort of self-generate, because they give you more ideas and they grow. And
and just the odd combinations. I mean, why would Adam pick Steph of all people to advise him on comebacks in a hostile improv situation?
I love how the actors just riff off of each other and just this witty banter throughout these episodes. John, over to you. One of the things that I found compelling was the focus on toxic fandoms, which is a real thing, and how women are the target of misogyny within these fandoms. Why was it important to shed a light on this within this very comical series, the franchise?
Yeah, I guess it was something, we were keen for it to be an early episode. I think because it felt like something that, it felt very specific to this world, right? And we were always looking for stories that could only really happen within this world of movie making. And you don't really get that sort of fan backlash to just an action movie or just a standalone movie. I guess because they are these long-running sagas, people have invested more of their lives, more of their time, and so they are very, very invested. And that topic in particular seemed to be something, as someone that plays a lot of video games, but Gamergate, and it seems to have come out of all of these things, that these forces have been kind of unleashed, and Twitter, I guess, has given it a voice and an outlet. And I guess what we're looking at in the show is like, why do these movies end up the way they do? And one of the forces, one of the kind of currents that's shaping these things is fan culture, right? And franchises and their relationships to their fans. And to what extent do they stand up to their fan base and say, this is what we're making? And to what extent is it like fan service and fan led and being craven to your fans and trying to keep them happy, but knowing that there's an element here that says we're sexist, but then there's an element over here that's violently misogynist. And being caught in the middle of those crosswinds feels like a funny, interesting thing to look at. And there are so many examples, right, of actresses in these movies that have had experiences that aren't funny, but we wanted to try to shed a light on it in a comic way.
Yeah, I mean, it's art imitating life, imitating art that we see in this series playing out. Armando, back to you. The end credits are so much fun to watch. To see the cast doing these behind the scenes interviews.
Yes. Yeah.
Were any of those improvised? Was it a non-consensual improv situation happening there?
Some of it. I think the original idea was that we were going to have them interspersing each episode, that you would cut to, because we quite like the idea of seeing, chaos or rage or wherever happening, and then when you see the actors in front of the press talking about it, they're on the best of friends, and it was the most wonderful time they ever had, and having that contrast. But in fact, the stories were so absorbing, we didn't want to cut away from them, so we use that device as an end thing, because there is that always thing. It's the thing I find with Veep, and so it's when you close, you sort of want to keep going. You don't want, you've only got whatever it is, 28 or 29 minutes. You don't want a minute of that not to be used with more funnies or more story and so on. So it's finding a way of being able to get the credits up, but at the same time giving the viewers something else as well, really. So that's where Veep
very much the inspiration, and I think Nick Kroll and Richard, I think that was probably the key one that was improvised. Most of them are scripted, but their exchanges about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Elizabeth Taylor, that was all from Nick, and I think you can kind of tell from Richard's reactions that he's just sort of strapping in, white knuckling it, hoping that he's not going to get cancelled for something. But yeah, those two together were really good. And I guess what was good was the episode didn't have enough space in it to have much of the two of them together. Those two characters, there wasn't kind of space in it. So it's really nice when you can just take a minute and just have, this is what it's like when you put these two characters together for a minute, and they're sort of just talking about Chateau Marmont and playing golf and Elizabeth Taylor's head. And yeah, but they're really fun.
I had a feeling Nick Kroll's scenes were improvised there. John, this is the first time that we've seen a show about the makings, at least from my vantage point, the makings of a Hollywood film through the lens of the first AD,
Right.
Who's our protagonist. Why did you choose to go with that route of storytelling for this series?
Yeah, I guess it was partly not wanting it to be told from the director's point of view or the actor's point of view. And the first AD seemed like an interesting situation because you're at the center of the web, you're sort of at the center of everything, but you're also somewhat powerless over your own fate, right? You don't get to choose the direction of the movie, but you're the one that everything falls onto. And when we researched them and talked to first ADs, it was incredible hearing the stories of how tough that life is. Someone told me that the average life expectancy of a first AD is the same as an NFL linebacker, and that because it's so stressful, right? It's such a demanding job and lots of alcoholism, and it's really tough. And so, it seemed like a funny point of view. I also haven't seen it before, and I felt some responsibility to kind of finally elevate these people and say, pretty much everything you've ever seen has been carried on the shoulders of the people that, are missing families and they're not home and they're addicted to the rush of this job. They do amazing work, and no one ever says thank you. There's no awards for them. They don't. So yeah, that felt like a good place for us to build the show around.
I definitely know what that life is like. I never worked as a first AD, but I worked as a second AD in film, and I definitely know that like, the role of a first AD, you're the first one on the set, and you're the last one. So,
and just from personal experience, if you have a really good first, the film's in good hands. But if you have someone who doesn't quite get it or get you, you're going to have a hard time because they make or break the film, I think, really.
Yeah, they don't get the respect that they deserve.
No,
I think.
No, they don't. No. Hopefully now they will. I hope.
Hopefully now they will through this incredible show.
Yeah.
Well,
be treated like heroes.
They are. They really are. They're unsung heroes of film.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerd.
Thank you.
Really love the show, and I appreciate the conversation today.
Fantastic.
You too. Take care. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.